Putz here joining us from New Jersey actually today to talk about some note due diligence for you guys. So before we get started, I do have just a couple of quick announcements. This is just one of many webinars that we host here at Quest. We host a lot of weekly webinars. We bring in a lot of different guest speakers every single week. So if you guys are interested in watching more of our education, be sure to check out some of the links that we will be sending in the chat here at the beginning and end of this presentation. So you will actually be able to rewatch today's webinar, as well as all of the other webinars that we host here at Quest. We live stream everything on both Facebook and actually now YouTube. So our YouTube channel is a great resource for you guys. We post a lot of new videos there every single week, as well as all of our weekly classes that we live stream. You can rewatch all of those on YouTube as well. So this is just one of many events that we host, but we do also have a couple of promotions going on right now that I want to share with you all. If you get our newsletters, you know that we are doing a promotion for Roth IRAs right now. So a Roth IRA is one of the best wealth building tools that you can utilize as a real estate investor. It is one of the few accounts that grows completely tax-free for not only your life, but you have the ability to pass on that money tax-free to your heirs as well. And one thing that we really like to talk about this time of year is Roth conversions. So if you actually have money in a traditional IRA or maybe an old 401k, you can actually convert those funds into a Roth IRA and then take advantage of completely tax-free growth for, again, not only the rest of your life, but your heirs' lives as well. So we are actually waiving all of our account opening fees for Roth IRAs right now, I believe just for a couple of more days. So if you guys are interested in that, be sure to send us an email. Katie will put this promo code in the chat, but the promo code is Roth Rush. So kind of rushing to get those Roth IRAs open by the end of the year. But it's a really great tool. If you have questions, reach out to an IRA specialist. We can kind of walk you through all of the ins and outs, the pros and cons, if it might be a good move for you. And this is something that we always recommend people look into at the end of the year, because especially in 2020, it's kind of been a wild year. You know, it might make sense to do a Roth conversion before the end of the year. So that's about all I have for you guys. We do also have a promotion going on for the Coverdell Education Savings Accounts. We are giving away little Questy gift packages for your kids to kind of open on Christmas, or I guess a little bit after Christmas now. But if you open up a Coverdell Education Savings account, we've got some awesome little gift packages we are sending out with those new accounts. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's presentation. David, I'm super excited to have you joining us today. We see a lot of people that like to use their IRAs to invest into notes. I know this is something you have quite a bit of experience in, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say about note due diligence today. If you guys have questions, I will come back on at the end. Be sure to send them to the Q&A box, and we'll get as many answered as we can here at the end of the presentation. But David, I'll go ahead and pass it off to you. The floor is yours for about the next hour, and I will come back on at the end.
Awesome. So guys, Dave Putz here from JKP Holdings. I've been doing notes for about 10 years or so. And what we've done in the last 10 years, do a complete turn around how we progress things through the process of buying a note, from the due diligence to the end of buying it. What we've learned in the space of note investing is that with a little bit of money or a lot of money, you can get into this sector. If you're typically used to real estate, note investing is something much different than brick and mortar. This whole idea of buying brick and mortar has been, for some people, either frustrating or difficult to do. Pricing, competition, and whatnot. Note investing for us has been completely different for us. What we found in note investing is it's more legal, right? We have some issues to deal with the property, but it's a legal process to understand. So when we say you can get in with a little bit of money, there's different avenues that we've shared over time of how to get in with a little bit of money. Some of the avenues have been buying partials and buying notes in a smaller amounts, buying seconds. So if you have $5,000 or $6,000 in your Roth IRA that you just converted over, you can buy a partial note. So, but what I want to go through today is our process of buying notes. So as easy as it is to have actual huge PowerPoint to demonstrate the entire process, you're going to lose out on some things. So I want to make sure you guys take good notes and explain what's going on here. So when you're buying a note, what you find is most people are nervous because it is legal. But what you have to understand is that the attorneys alongside of you are going to be able to explain everything. Before we go to buying the note, the first step is, what do you need when you want to buy a note? What is the details? What do we care about? When we buy a note, we often get a list of addresses from a seller. Now be careful when you're buying from these sellers that they're not brokers. What I mean by that is you want to make sure that they actually own the asset. To do that, some of the common ways to figure out is look at the county records. See if the asset has actually been recorded in that owner's name. You can also ask where the collateral files stored and what servicer is servicing the asset. Some awesome information to make sure that when you go through the process, you personally know what's going on. Next, when you know the seller is the true seller, you want to get into the pre-due diligence phase. This means you want to collect information on the asset. This includes, besides what's already given to you, is the property information. You also want to get the data points on the property. How many bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, what the value of the property is. You also want to know what the county is, what the property tax annually is. We also get into the delinquent taxes, but that's later down the steps. Right now, we're looking to make an indicative offer. These data points also should include things like, is the property listed for sale? Is the property currently or previously in a situation where the owner was looking to sell the property? This shows you motivation. This shows you interest. This also shows you value. With the property tax, when you're collecting the annual, this is used to actually go through the process of putting together your bid calculator to know what the amount of taxes expected to be gained over the time of if you have to foreclose on it. The delinquent amount is needed to know so that if you do have to foreclose, you need to know how much you're going to have to pay in taxes, as that is before your restoration. The additional data points, such as the bedrooms, bathrooms, values, and occupancy, allows you to know where the property is in the current status. What is going on with the property? Is the property in good condition, bad condition? We also, during this stage, is we reach out to agents locally to the property through our systems and allow them to just do a quick drive-by, get an idea of what the property is. We also want to find out from their local knowledge, what's the area like? Is it a renter's area? Is it a situation where the property is in an up-and-coming neighborhood? What we often find is that there's sometimes little tiny blocks of space in certain cities that are really, really good. But from an outsider looking in, you're not going to know that. So going from brick and mortar, looking in your backyard to go into notes, this may be a little more difficult. But what you find is the inventory is tremendously different. You're allowed to or able to expand your options to not include only your backyard competing against everyone else. This is a completely different game than the wholesalers and brokers that brick and mortars are used to doing. If this thing's performing, you still need to get this data point to know what happens if. When we complete this task, we're now going through our calculations and we're trying to figure out what we should bid on this asset. There's multiple exits that we're concerned with. When we're worried about exit strategies, it involves if the borrower is going to reinstate and start performing. Because if they do that, we need to make sure that our returns are what we look for. As I stress in note investing in any real estate, your bids should be based on your returns, not based on any other number. Everything else calculates your returns, and you need to know your returns first. If that equates to a percentage in our space, unpaid principal balance, or value, If it doesn't equate to your returns, those numbers should go mute. So what we calculate in our systems is the return based on every scenario. And we decide which scenario is the most likely to go. If this property has been delinquent for 10 years, more likely they're not going to reinstate. If they do, we need to make sure the return, if it's a 3% coupon moving up to a 5, doesn't work for some investors. They need to get a double-digit return. And that's the area you need to make sure that you're being careful on. All these data points get loaded into a calculator that you build out, knowing your expenses from your servicer costs to your rehab values to your insurance. Forced place insurance is a huge factor in our space. What forced place insurance basically does is covers the lender for in case something dramatically happens to the property. It does not cover the borrower's items. We have a lender's place insurance in a situation that covers if a fire happens, if something happens to the property that's damaged by natural events. We're covered. That's a cost that we have to take on if the property is not performing. We also have to carry the servicing fees. What that means is that when we're buying a property in a note space, similar to when you buy a rental property, you have the ability to have a servicer, or in real estate, a property manager manage the asset, send out the statements, and collect the statements. All this information needs to be done by a licensed servicer, which means they need to be licensed in every state that you're collecting debt in, based on the property. That's a fee that adds into your expenses. All these fees go into an expense bubble, and it tells you which every scenario, foreclosure rehab to reinstatement to a short sale to a deed in lieu, which means that the borrower is going to sign over the deed and not need to be foreclosed on. We also can, if they want to do a modification. A modification strictly means that the borrower is allowing you to, you're allowing the borrower to modify the original terms of the agreement and start over, kind of. They typically put down a bunch of money or a little bit of money, depending on you, the investor, and move forward to make their monthly payments. You determine the returns on that 100%. Because they're in delinquent, that factors all matters. Next, we worry about foreclosure rehab sell, right? We want to know if we were foreclosing this property and we have to rehab it in the current condition, and then we have to sell it. What's the sale price? How much is rehab? Often the question we get by many of our followers is, how do I calculate rehab? There isn't no magic wand. We've seen homes where they've been in situations where the house has been terrible and the outside looked pretty, and vice versa. We can't get inside knowledge. You cannot walk into a property. So if anyone's telling you could, run the other way. There's plenty of people in this space that are really there to support you. JKP Holdings has been around for years now. We have large Facebook groups, we have large products and stuff like that. But we're here to ultimately help each other. And that's our goal. I'm going to bid on assets that you won't, and vice versa. So when you get this number that you're looking to bid, we want to make the actual offer. When we make this offer, we want to make sure that the other items are completely filled in and ready to be accounted for. Our bid calculator is now ready, and we're now progressing towards the spot that if we're going to win this offer, we're going to back it up. You need to make sure that you have an agent ready to make that phone call to go do a drive-by and ensure the property is still there. You need to make sure you have an attorney that's ready to go in that state if it's not performing, and you already signed up with a servicer. We list assets for sale and we buy assets all the time. Some servicers carry different states than others. You need to have that stuff ready. The next step for us, we go through a whole checklist of things. Now, we look at foreclosure time, we look at foreclosure costs. What does that mean? Certain states' foreclosure time is a very, very different factor than others. Some involve courts, some don't. They're called judicial and non-judicial states. Some states take 16, 18 months. Some states can take as little as 4 months if it's non-contested, meaning the borrower didn't fight it. Now, if you have a little bit of money, these kind of things may not be attractive to you. You'd look to performing, which I'll touch upon in a few minutes. The next step is we want to get the costs. Now, you can go to Fannie Mae and look at their annual costs, or you can reach out to your attorneys. The attorneys typically go based on a Fannie Mae schedule. The cost of the legal part is different than the cost for courts. You have your auction fee, your legal costs for the courts. You also have the publication. Whenever you're going through a foreclosure, you have to publicize that's happening, make it public notice. There's additional costs if the person is deceased, and you have to notify heirs. This is why attorneys and notes is very, very, very much legal. When you're going through this step, these table of information should be ready for you to look at. We've heard many investors tell us about how they do things without a calculator, and they may be able to. We just feel there's a lot of numbers that go into this to calculate our concerns. Now, on top of this, not only does the licensed servicer need to be involved, there's certain states that you require to be licensed. So when you're looking at notes and you're looking for an asset, you need to make sure that you're counting for states that you can be a debt collector in, on top of your servicer. You also have to be aware of things like the statute of limitations. Every state has a different statute of limitations of when and how you can collect the debt. If you exceeded that, you could lose the asset to a statute of limitations. With the delinquent taxes, you could also lose your asset to a delinquent tax situation that goes to tax sale. We just publicized an article about this earlier today. You have to make sure you have all the ducks in a row. This may sound difficult, it may sound a little bit overwhelming, but there's people there to support you and help you out. But it's an education process. I don't encourage people just to jump in, but you need to get involved somehow. Work with somebody that's already doing this and see if you can connect with them. We then can show you different avenues. So when we're looking at things, we actually have our own bid calculator, right? Excuse me. Our bid calculator displays this entire situation. So what does that mean? The entire situation is the note details, our servicers, our attorneys, time calculations, exit strategies, and whatnot. And if I'm allowed, I'll definitely show you those products as well at the end and explain what those look like. What we also use is our portal. We have a JKP portal that we use to collect the data. This automates the process of getting all the information in one row for every asset we're looking to do. We take the information from the portal, plug into the calculator, and we're ready to go. We take that along with the property, the state timeframes for foreclosure, the costs, our desired return for every exit. So for foreclosing, what exit do we need to have? If it's performing, what return do we need to have? If we're going to do a modification, if we're going to take it back and rent it, what return do we need for those situations? Our bid calculator does all those kind of calculations. It also calculates if you take it back or if they reinstate, what is your return annually to make sure that the money you're looking to make is the money you make. Again, we're focusing back on the returns. We've often hear a lot of people talk about bidding on based on BPO and UPB. We have a great spreadsheet that shows you that if you use a 3% interest rate and an 8% interest rate, you can quickly show that the return, if you simply bid based on BPO or UPB, is completely different. These are kind of scary things, right? You're in a situation where you're really looking at an asset and you want to make sure you make a bid. But if you bid strictly and only based on that return of the percentage of BPO or UPB, your returns are different simply because the P&I payment is completely off. Because the interest rate directly affects the coupon rate, which is also called the interest rate. So with the 3% coupon and 8% coupon, if that loan is, say, $60,000, you're bidding 30% of UPB, or I'm sorry, 60% UPB or 70%, that P&I payment is completely separate. And when you add in the P&I payment in each scenario, and you're going to get that return based on your purchase price, the return, IRR, and yield are dramatically different, simply because the P&I payment related to the interest rate is a 5% difference. Now, we also asked, when you run calculations, like we have on our website, what happens when your bid price is really low? Now, again, our calculator based on returns, not BPO or UPB. So if your bid amount on an asset is extremely low because your returns are set where they are at, and those are what the returns you need, we suggest filter out those that are really low and only bid on the ones that your returns are high, your bid numbers on the returns are high enough for the seller. Our next step is when we want to make the offer. Now we take a list of, say, 100 assets and we reduce it down to, say, 10, because those assets are the ones we're going to bid on that are reach upon the seller's request of percentage of, and it equates our returns. We then make our next step and make an offer. Now, we haven't seen any collateral here. We haven't dived deep into the property per se. We haven't ordered a BPO or a title search. None of that has actually happened yet. What's happening next is just making an indicative offer, and we make it subject to a list of things. Those lists of items can include things from the seller's servicer, collateral files. We also want to make sure that if the property has any notes on it, we want to get that information, servicer notes or whatnot, and many other items. You can find those items actually on our website. Our next step is when we receive and we're ready to make this offer, we want to make sure we bid in timely fashion. Even if the seller has a situation where they're looking for an offer quickly, or look for an offer a week from now, we want to take both and make that offer as fast as possible, ensuring that we have everything else done. And what we have shown, our automation systems that we actually have available help you quickly, responsibly, and reducing human errors, allow you to make that process. So when you're looking at assets and you want to make an offer, you can use our portal to collect the data. You move on. You can then use our calculator to allow you to calculate an offer using all the factors we've already talked about and allow you to make an offer in a matter of minutes, depending on the assets you're looking to run. So our recent release of our bid calculator allows you to run assets based on your scenario and our experience on how to calculate everything all together to allow you to make that offer quickly. If you need to adjust little things here and there, the calculator allows for that as well. The portal that we have available that collects data allows you to run things such as who and what agents are local to the property, their email, phone number, and whatnot. Then we also have the availability of collecting the data. We have over 60 different fields that are available to be collected. We also have the average rental in the area, so you get an idea of what the rent is for, how much it is. So the agent's data, how valuable is it to have this information that our website provides you, that shows you the list of agents that are local to your property and also includes their email address and phone number. You can quickly and easily create a mail merger with the property information like we do and email out the entire 15 or so agents that you got. And so you pick out one you like and get a response. Often people use this in place of a BPO if you ask the right questions. Our next step, we have all the data, Our portal will get the information, and our calculators now bid the offer, waiting for the seller to come back. Now the seller may or may not counter or accept your offer. What we often find is that sellers typically counter. So we need to make sure that you're ready to adjust that counter. So often you may increase your returns number so they make sure that you can adjust back down, or you can let the seller know that these are all subject to final numbers and agree to their price. You also want to make sure when you make that offer to sellers that you include what the delinquent amount that you're aware of is. If you haven't pulled that number, make them aware of the number that's on their spreadsheet, that your bid is based on that number. If it's different, or if they didn't provide it, but you calculate it in there, let them know this bid is based on X amount of delinquent taxes. The tax delinquency can be found on the county website and can be found by calling up the county website, county tax authority, and finding out what the data is. The next step is to actually make the move and talk to the seller. If the seller accepts your offer, what do you do? Now, if you bought the partials, let's talk about that for a moment. Typically, you're working with buying partials. You're buying a string of payments. Could be 5, 10, 15, 60 payments. The idea here is you're buying a performing asset, and you're buying it for a period of time, allowing you to collect money in a performing manner. And once that asset's done with the contractable payment amount that you agree with the seller, that asset then returns to the seller. Some sellers will actually take the asset back if it stopped performing. So those with a little bit of money could find someone who does have a performing note and offer them, hey, I'll pay $6,000 for a year of payments. If the seller accepts it, you're going to make the return you're looking at, whatever amount you decide to be, minus your service fees, for a year. You can buy another string of payments, or you can buy 60 months or whatever. The idea of buying partials is to get into the game at a low amount of money. In our beginner's course, we talk about this kind of thing. There's multiple ways to get into notes with a little bit of money. What I will tell you, and we've talked about this in webinars, is joint venturing with others. Adding your money with someone else's money can be dangerous. We've had webinars where people have been fined for doing this stuff. So do your favor, be careful joint venturing, and make sure you speak to an attorney about anything you're looking to do. Joint venturing can be seen as raising capital. So if you're looking for a partner with capital and you're going to be a know-it-all, you could be in a tough situation. Now, you have a little bit of money, you buy the performing note, you work with your servicer, you're collecting that payment. This could be an IRA, Roth IRA, which we've done many times, or this could be just some money you have on the side. We recommend those who are looking to buy a note to get into the world and make sure you create an LLC. We also recommend to have an email address that's not a AOL or Gmail or Yahoo. It just makes you look a little bit more legit. You can simply you can still use Gmail, but make a Google Suite, which we have, and still use the features of Gmail if you choose to go that way. Not saying the sellers will avoid Gmails, it's just sometimes frowned upon. Now, you make this indicative offer with a list of indicated information that you need to make sure your indicative offer has. You need to know the next step. Your next step is actually taking the offer and going to the property, looking at the property condition. This means contacting the agent that you previously reached out to and asking them to do a drive-by. Now you can hire a BPO to do this. You can hire a We Go Look or contact an agent. Even better, we recommend contacting another note investor. We have an entire list in our Facebook groups of members who've allowed us to share their information. So if you can connect with another note investor who's local to a property that you're looking to buy, how great is that? You don't got to explain anything. They understand the business and they're looking at the asset. It's a win-win. We recently did this, and we actually had an investor share us a video of a guy mowing his lawn over the summertime. Valuable information. We know the fact that it was delinquent. However, the person had ownership. There was someone living there, and someone took pride. Next, we want to verify the delinquent tax amount. This means we want to make sure that we reach out to the county and get that information. We often pull what we call our ownership and encumbrance report. It's similar to a title report. The difference between that and a title report is a title report is typically done for 30 years or so and done when the property is purchased. An ownership and encumbrance, O&E, is purchased and measured based on when the borrower bought the property till now. So the title report that's inside the collateral file covers previously, and the O&E report covers from the time they bought it to now. This will include things like your tax liens, any other liens on the property, mechanics, or mortgages, tax sales, annual tax amount, delinquent taxes, foreclosure situations, and then everything to go in between there. Next, we want to look at the lien status and foreclosure status. We want to make sure that what we received inside the seller's information, we call it tape, it still matches up with the information that we received in the collateral file when we got the bid accepted. Inside that collateral file, you're gonna have your things like your mortgage, you have your note, you have your title report, and whatever documents you also requested. Assignments and lodges will be also included. And we break down what all those pieces are on our website. Our next is we want to see what the foreclosure status is. Our foreclosure status is a really big factor. If it's already been started, we need to know what's going on. So you can ask the seller, they can speak to the attorney on file. But you can also pull up the document information online in most counties. When you do that, you need to make sure that that information that you know and what the county provided equates to what you're okay and ready for. What does that mean? Is the borrower contesting, fighting, having issues? Is judgment, which means the court has already agreed to the amount that's owed, taking place? How far along that process is it? Lien status is another important thing. If you're buying a first lien and it's recorded as a second, you have work to do. If it's in a state where HOA could be super liened, gotta be sure that they're what they're doing. In a state that they may not be super liened, you still need to make sure if they're filing foreclosure that you're part of the file. We've been in a situation where we didn't realize that early on, and we almost lost a situation in foreclosure. We ended up getting in the second position and saved the day. Now, the one piece I haven't touched upon is bankruptcy. Within bankruptcy, this is either 7 or 13 typically. The borrower is filing to reconstruct their debt and to either make payments or wipe off debt that they do not want. If the court approves the plan, they move forward. You need to know this bankruptcy information to know what's going on. Typically, you're buying a loan and performing, and it's in bankruptcy. Typically, it's performing. In the case it's not, you can go on to pacer.gov and pull the record and find out what's going on. It may be a little difficult at first. So again, teaming up with another note investor may be your best option. Understanding the bankruptcy file shows you what the borrower is doing, what's happening in the bankruptcy file, what other assets they have, and how they're going about the process. It also tells you what the borrower feels the property is worth, which is a golden ticket for you. If the borrower feels the property is worth nothing, it may give me some idea of what the condition of the property is. Next, when you're reviewing the collateral file, we recommend when you're brand new to the space, do not review the collateral file yourself unless you have legal experience. You can send legal documents, the collateral file, to an attorney in the state who's going to do your foreclosure. You can send to a collateral management company or document storers and reviewers, and you can send it to your servicer. Now, the best options are based on what you choose to be. We typically send our files to our attorneys to hold and secure it. When we do that, we also want to let them know that we want to make sure that when we do this kind of stuff, that the foreclosure attorney makes us aware of what is missing. What this means is if there's an assignment, if there's a launch, if there's an out of order situation that's missing, or it's just out of order, we need to make sure we cover that. And that gap needs to be fixed. What I mean is that if the gap is there, that seller, if A originates, B is the person in between, and C is the person you're buying from, those three have to have the line in order. When you do make sure of that, and if it doesn't match up, you need to go back and fix that. You can ask your seller to help fix it, or you can buy it and fix it yourself. Oftentimes, we use that as a strategy to reduce our price, knowing that most of the time, those items can be fixed. Again, your attorney is going to let you know if it's fixable or not. Once you get the information back, we then go through and we want to go through the rest of the collateral file. We're matching up again the details on the tape that we received in the beginning, make sure the interest rate, the maturity date, everything still matches up. Inside the collateral file, if there's a modification agreement, we want to make sure that's inside there. We recently had a situation where we bought a note and the seller was trying to get a modification done. And unbeknownst to them, the servicer actually sent out the paperwork just days before we made our plan to purchase it. The wire went through, the funding happened. We then went ahead and actually took possession of the asset to only find out the terms completely changed. This frustrated us, went back to the seller who made it right. Refunded some of the money, we got to keep the asset. It's one of our best performers. Now, those kind of things we understand may be difficult. We want to make sure you guys understand that this is not easy, but it's also something all of us started and didn't know much about either. In my past, working for the hedge fund, I was just analyzing assets. I didn't understand any of this aspects. Over time, doing deals and talking to other fellow friends in the note space, we've learned this stuff. So when we do these kind of things, we're always learning. Now, once we get into the situation and we review the collateral file and we check it, our attorney says it's good, and all our numbers match, and maybe delinquent taxes haven't changed, and we check with our bankruptcy, we've now moved forward to get ready to wire. Making sure that everything is I's are dotted and T's are crossed, we're going to go ahead and wire the money. We wire the money from us, our bank, directly to the seller through our bank. Now, I'd love to take any questions, show any displays that need to be displayed. If you want to see what our calculator looks like, we can definitely do that. If you want to see the portal, I can walk through it as well. But I want to make sure that any questions that have to be said and anything you're curious about, we could definitely break down a little bit more, but I wanted to go through the process so you guys understood the entire process before we go into it.
Awesome. Great information, David.
Thank you.
We don't have any questions as of right now, but while we did just get a couple of come in here. Kimberly wants to know, what is the typical timeline of this?
From start to finish, typically, if you're going to make an offer, we suggest people to make an offer within 72 hours. If you can do it shorter, great. Automation or systems allow that to be possible, but typically with 72 hours, the entire process may take 2 weeks. Since once you make the offer, the seller accepts it, you do your due diligence, and then the collateral file is shipped over to you, then it happens. The hard file then gets shipped afterwards. So.
Nice. Okay, awesome. Let's see. And then Troy wants to know, is it at all common for a seller to sell several notes bundled together to a buyer? If so, would you recommend this?
So yes, a bulk offer buying a pool of assets is definitely attractive. You often can get a little bit of a discount doing it this way. They often ask for it, what they call loan level bidding. Loan level bidding means you're making an offer on every asset individually. Now, would I recommend it? It depends on your level of knowledge. And if you're able to completely go through the due diligence process, making sure all your I's are crossed and T's are crossed, dotted and T's crossed, and making sure the numbers match up. But you make sure that the seller who says that the seller is truly the seller.
Awesome. Is the due diligence process any different if you're purchasing a bundle of notes versus maybe just one?
It can be. What typically happens with a bundle of notes is that you can definitely waiver your bid numbers accordingly. That if you're making a full pool offer, you can actually reduce your offers down a little bit and marginalize it. So if you're buying 10 assets, you don't need to hit a home run every one of them. You can actually waiver some of them. And we bid $1 on a few assets when we buy a pool just because of numbers to make sure it matches up. So we're still bidding per annual, per level. However, the whole pool has to go in submitted. And yes, you're buying the entire pool of assets as a bundle.
Nice. Awesome. Great answer there. Another question from Kimberly here. Kimberly wants to know if someone wants to know more information about the calculator and this portal that you were talking about, where can they find more information about this?
Sure. I can definitely show our website if that's okay with you guys, or however you want to go about it. But if you want to go to jkpholdings.com, we actually have our website available that shows you how to do it manually, which is frustrating. Human error comes into play, and how our system actually works out to automate the entire process. So our calculator is jkpholdings.com/bid-calculator. You can definitely go right to there to get the information. I'll also put that in your notes for you. For that fact, our portal is similar in that fashion. You can get that through our website as well. The video on that, but the portal's actually a separate website per se, just because the way it's structured. They work hand in hand together right now, and they continue to build on the automation process for you.
Perfect. I just realized I've been sending all of these chats to just the panelists. So sorry, attendees, I will get this information sent to all of you, not just the people who are running this webinar. That doesn't really do you any good. Perfect. So I did get both of those websites put in there. You guys should all be able to see them now. David, if someone wants to get a hold of you, if someone has more questions, what's a good way for someone to get a hold of you?
Definitely you can use our website. To get our asset list, you could definitely email our trade desk at jkpholdings.com. That we have about our email. Also, my direct email is dputz@JKP Holdings. But if you're looking for, we have about 100 assets right now that we have for sale. You can definitely email directly to our trade desk to get our NDA, which is through our website. You can also find us on Facebook. We have our Facebook group, our Facebook page. We have a bunch of podcasts. We have a YouTube channel, and we have a bunch of services on our website. We recommend people looking at that. And our Facebook group has a huge resource list from servicers, their fee schedules, to also showing resources like attorneys. Our calculator pulls in attorneys into it for the state base, which is awesome. But the calculator allows you to kind of reduce the worry of what you're missing on and make sure you're focusing on what's important.
Awesome. Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question for you, because you guys do offer a lot of educational resources over notes. So be sure to check out that website. Be sure to check out the Facebook page. You can find a lot of information there. David, I do just have one last question for you before we sign off for the day. If you had one piece of advice to offer for note investors moving forward into 2021, what piece of advice would you offer? Where do you think the opportunities are? What kind of final thoughts would you like to leave us with today?
Awesome. Well, there's a lot of excitement about 2021 with the whole pandemic and what's going to happen. There's a lot of questions of what's going to happen with notes. We're not sure how residential is going to be. We obviously see that commercial will probably be an avenue to explore, but I would say it's just sit on the sideline. We don't know what's going to happen. Bundle that money up, hold on to it, and network with people you like. Find someone in the space that you really respect and you trust, and just talk with them regularly. So when you're looking at buying notes, you have someone to bounce ideas off of and thoughts off of. Get part of the system, get part of the network. If you're a beginner, get involved with different courses. We do have a beginner's course series video, but get connected with multiple different people. We all have our different perspective. For 2021, we expect it to be a big year for a lot of different avenues, and we definitely look to connect with more investors to make sure what our knowledge can be shared with you guys, just so we can help out, so that we prevent anyone from doing anything that could be dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Great piece of information to kind of leave our audience with today. David, this has been so helpful. I hope that you guys out there learned some things about notes. I know I sure did. Don't forget that we are waiving our account opening fees for Roth IRAs for just a few more days, especially now, at the end of the year. We don't know if taxes are going up. They probably are at some point in time. But be sure to get those Roth IRAs open. Be sure to max out your contributions if you are able to. If not, do a Roth conversion. We can walk you through this process step by step. David, I know you've done a lot with IRAs, especially Roth IRAs as well. Guys, it's a great tool. Be sure to take advantage of it. And if you want to rewatch today's class, be sure to head on over to our Facebook page or our YouTube page. You can find this entire class there, as well as all of our other weekly webinars. This weekend, we do have a webinar coming up. It is Self-Directed IRA Saturday. I believe that this weekend it is over oil and gas investing. So great topic there. And if you guys have any questions, be sure to reach out to us, reach out to David, take advantage of those resources and those links that we sent here in the chat. And David, that's all I've got. Do you have anything else before we sign off for the day?
That's it. Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time. And to everyone out there, I hope you all have happy holidays. Stay safe. We'll see you this Saturday. And after that, we will see you in the new year. Y'all have a great holiday. See you later.
Take care.